Call the meeting to order. We have in attendance me remotely, Amanda, Wayne, Tom, and Dan. Priscilla's excused, and I'm waiting to hear from Carla. So we could start with the item number 3, town meeting article review.
Sure, I'm happy to start. The first article is for the general fund budget adjustments. That is Article 2 in the draft warrant, which has some preliminary numbers now. I will speak about the police department adjustment, and then I will ask Matt to speak about the DPW adjustment, if that's all right, Jim.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So there are a number of changes being proposed for the police department budget for fall town meeting, and these are really organized around 2 reasons. One, as you know, a couple of town meetings ago, the town funded body cameras. So that is now fully operational. It's been implemented. The police department's gone through a testing period, and everybody has been issued the body cameras. There's a lot of administrative work with managing the data and managing the public records request associated with the data, as well as all of the privacy and redaction concerns that goes along with that. So that is one item that's happening, that has changed the police department's work. The other item is that just recently, the select board voted on my recommendation to reorganize the emergency management department and fully incorporate it into the police department. So previously, there had been a standalone emergency management department with a standalone budget. That is now being rolled into the police department budget to be used at the direction of the chief of police. So the budget adjustments that I'm proposing for fall town meeting are an increase to the police chief's salary to take on the responsibility of being the emergency management director under the law. And that is $7,500. I'm also recommending an increase of $66,000 into the police department budget to fund a 3rd lieutenant position for the second half of the year. So starting sometime after January 1st. So that money would be available after January 1st to bring on a 3rd lieutenant, and distribute the workload, and the police chief can redistribute the workload between operations, body cameras, emergency management, and administrative duties. So it'll give him 3 lieutenants to work across rather than 2. The other changes that we have to do are we have to roll the emergency management lines into the police department budget. So those would be removed from the standalone budget and incorporated into the police department's salary line, equipment line, IT lines, depending on what the purpose of the emergency management money was for. So that is the change to the police department budget. That's the supplemental request. Are there any questions that I can answer?
So this 3rd lieutenant will do emergency management plus other administrative duties.
The police chief will kind of redistribute the workload across all 3. So depending on how the promotional process goes, depending on who the 3 are, there will be there's extra work for body cameras and extra work for emergency management. That may not be just what that lieutenant is doing. Other operational and administrative duties will be shifted around.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions on police?
Yeah, I'm sorry, is there an existing list now from civil service for that third position so that they can fill it the first of the year?
We do not have a list. We're in the process of creating a list.
Okay.
The second budget adjustment is for DPW. This is with regards to funding field maintenance, and Matt Sawicki will be able to kind of walk you through that.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Matt Sawicki, Public Works Director. So as you may or may not know, DPW did a field pilot study over the spring to take over all the maintenance of all the baseball fields in town. There were 5 fields we took over: Clark Road, Monument Beach, Becassett Field, the Community Building, and Clark Field. That project was funded by ARPA funds, $75,000 of ARPA funds, to see what it would cost. At the end of the project, we found that to take care of the fields the way they should be taken care of was $36,485. Of that money, $24,849 was money that we had not previously absorbed. That was about $7,200 in overtime costs and about $17,705 in cost for irrigation, for fertilization and weed control at the fields. So what we're asking for is a $25,000 budget adjustment that would include $7,200 into the overtime budget, which would bring the overtime budget from $47,500 to $54,700, and an additional $17,500 into the the tennis and ball field item, which will bring it to $57,800.
I have a question.
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
is this in addition to the ARPA funds, above and beyond the ARPA funds? Or
So-
this is,
So the ARPA, sorry, that's a good question. So the ARPA funds were a one-time pilot project where we just decided to do it for one season, which was last year.
Okay.
So that money, this money that we're asking for tonight will fund next
Year.
season.
Okay.
So we need to put the money in the fall town meeting warrant, so it's available in March when we need to start getting ready to think. So May town meeting's too late. So we're asking to adjust the FY '25 budget by adding this money so it's available as soon as the grass starts growing.
okay. And I know we were doing a feasibility study of some of those parks. Does it make sense to sort of put a hold on this and review utilization and priorities?
So you are right, and that project, the feasibility study for the 4 areas, is underway and that's being done by the Recreation Department and the Recreation Committee. That's going to be something that's going to lead to capital changes. This money is just strictly for operating expenses to keep the fields in good repair, to use them. So we know that youth baseball is going to want to use the fields next summer.
Okay.
So while we're waiting for the feasibility study and the kind of the longer term plan on what should be rebuilt and what should be repaired and how things should be reorganized, this money will just kind of keep us going with what we have,
Okay, thank you.
but in a hopefully a well-maintained state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on this DPW item? Okay, it looks like none. We could turn to item C, ice swim operating budget adjustments.
Jim, can we do B first?
The
Yeah,
capital.
yes,
request?
yeah, I apologize, I got cut off the way I printed. Go for it.
So the capital requests are shown in the chart below item B, and these are found in the warrant in Articles 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the departments are here to go through them and explain them to you. What I will say is that we're proposing, this list proposes $1,178,000 of free cash, $270,000 from ISWIM retained earnings, and $3,520,000 from borrowing. So we can go through, the ISWIM projects are the retained earnings projects, the fire engine, the land acquisition for a fire station, and the new roof at Fire Station 3, which is Sagamore Beach, are the borrowing projects, and then the remainder are the free cash articles. So if you have any questions about the funding as the departments are explaining the projects, just let me know, and Eric and I will try to help. So the first
Thank you.
one is DPW.
Matt Swicky, DPW Director. We only have one capital request this fall town meeting, and we're asking for $32,000 to fund streetlights at the intersection of Main Street and Academy Drive. When we recently did the sidewalk project, we installed the footings and the electrical conduit to be able to install these lights in the future. And now we're asking for $32,000 to install those lights. It would include the lights, the wiring, and any professional electrical services needed to install them.
How many lights are we talking about?
Two.
Just two.
And they'll match the lights at Buzzards Bay Park.
I don't have any other questions.
Almost.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you.
The next project is engineering.
Mr. Lyden?
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Tim Lyden, Bourne Engineering. The application I have before you guys today is Eel Pond Road. It's a drainage improvement project. We have this on our 5-year capital plan. Kind of jumped up a couple of years. We are checking a major box for MS4, which is our municipal separate stormwater system requirement. It's a regulatory requirement from the EPA. We had to, pick a structural BMP to mitigate and rebuild based on testing that we've done over the past several years. So Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program has been a great partner for us. Some of the testing they've done has led us to do the mitigation here. It's a really big watershed that has a lot of water lead over a lot of lawns and road to 2 catch basins that discharge directly into the Back River water system. This has been a focus of ours for a few years. It's a project that I hope to get to in the springtime, pending some other grant projects that we have out there. So $160,000 is both for engineering, construction administration, and bidding assistance, and some final design work, as well as the construction to do some oil grit separators and a larger infiltration bed below the actual right-of-way. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So you'll be the project manager on this?
So we're gonna bring in Green Seal Environmental, did the preliminary design and the permitting with our Conservation Commission. I am out there every day with the construction outfit. And then we also have the professional engineers that design the project to come do periodic inspections and site visits, probably 3 or 4 during the course of the project. This should be a pretty quick project, but we are doing a lot of excavation within the right-of-way.
Okay. And there are no grants available for this work?
There could be grants available, but we do have, it's starting to get really competitive with some of our stormwater projects. We have a long list now. So putting all that on the 5-year plan and seeing it all come together, this was my attempt to keep the things moving. We have one grant right now out for the Queen Sewell parking lot. We're hoping to hear back on that very soon. We have a Hen Cove drainage project that is approved. So this was a project that if we can get it funded and there's no other projects for early spring, we're going to do this as soon as possible, as soon as the weather breaks.
So, Tim, so this money is going to pay for the whole entire project from beginning to end, correct?
Correct. We also, this was also dovetailing on the $30,000 stormwater article from a year and a half ago. We did like a couple shore road designs and then Eel Pond Road. This ended up being the third one. So we already did permitting and the conceptual plan for this.
Okay. Thank you.
About $10,000 already.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments for Mr. Lydon?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, pump out vote.
Hi, good evening. Hannah Lawrence, Natural Resources. The first item that the DNR is requesting is for a replacement pump out boat for the 2008 boat that we currently have servicing the south side of town. This boat is used mainly in the Red Brook Harbor area, but in order to fuel up and pump out the boat, to discharge the 300-gallon holding tank, it is required to travel through Buzzards Bay, which can get pretty turbulent, and travel to Phineas Harbor, which puts a lot of additional stress on the hull in the tank of the boat. So we are looking to replace the older of our 2 pop-out boats.
Thank you. Would the new boat or boats have a bigger capacity, more than 300 gallons?
It'll likely be the same, essentially model that we currently have. You know, the 300-gallon tank and the 21-foot boat. So it would be just a newer version of what we currently have.
Thank you.
How many gallons does the boat pump out in a year on average now?
So I was just looking at the logs from just the last couple of months. I mean, and on average, you're pumping out about 20 gallons per boat is typical. I would say during a month, it's probably upwards of 2,500 gallons, potentially more than that. It really just depends on, a number of conditions, whether it's, weather, I don't know how much people are using their boats. It services not only like the folks in the marinas, but also any transient. So anyone that is, anchoring at the island, Bass's Island. So it really fluctuates from season to season. And there are also some land stations as well where folks, have the opportunity to utilize that. So again, it does fluctuate. But I'd say, a month is probably about 2,500 gallons or, potentially more.
Thank you.
So the next item, if there weren't any questions for pump out boat, was the Monument Beach wave attenuator. So we are looking to remove and replace the existing wave attenuator at the end of the pier at Monument Beach. The current structure is in disrepair, as it is hanging off the dock at this point. It was previously repaired in 2014, and prior to that, when the storm hit Monument Beach in 2006, that was put in 2007. So the wave attenuator serves as a breakwater, so essentially slowing down any of the wave action that's coming in from Buzzards Bay through Phineas Harbor. It is a fairly exposed location, so that helps to protect the infrastructure and any of the boats in the marina, as well as our docks, upwellers for the shellfish. So that is the wave attenuator project.
Thank you.
And the last DNR request was for piling replacements at Taylor's Point Marina. There are about 10 pilings that have significant damage and need to be replaced just due to the tides, weather, storms, and just the general wear and tear of being in the water. So that can become dangerous, not only for the patrons and the boats, but also the rest of the marina as well. So that cost was about $30,000, with about 10 to 20,000 coming from the mobilization of the pile driver barge, with $1,500 to $2,500 roughly per pile.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on DNR items?
Nope.
Looks like none, thank you. Okay, we could hear about the fire department items.
Good evening, thank you. Dave Palonzi, Fire Chief. First request we have is for $45,000 for 12 sets of PPE, personal protective equipment. For this, we have a $1.4 million SAFER grant application into FEMA to hire firefighters, 4 firefighters, and all of their salaries and benefits for 3 years would be covered under the grant. This request would provide them each with 2 sets of structural firefighting gear and 1 set of wildland firefighting gear. And for the most part, that would be our whole cost for these 4 firefighters if we're successful. If we are not successful in this grant, I would be withdrawing this application. So it's contingent upon a successful application that I hope to hear in the next few weeks.
So, Chief, this grant is going to cover payment, their salary for 3 years.
Correct.
And at the end of 3 years, the town has to pick up all 4.
Yes. And we've been working well in advance of that is kind of how we're going to handle that. Yep. So that it's not sneaking up in 3 years.
You mean you're going to add some, you'll add somebody each year or something to offset the budget?
We're working with Erica to have a plan to
Gradually
absorb these costs.
Over that 3-year period?
So it's not a huge jump after the 3 years is up.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And we're fully staffed now?
We are we are almost fully staffed.
We
now.
had one retirement.
We had a
My
retirement.
predecessor.
Okay,
We're in the process of filling that position, but yes.
good. Thank you.
No other questions on the PPE? Our next request is $400,000 for cardiac monitors and CPR devices. The reason we're bringing this up now, we currently have 4 LifePak 15 machines, which are 15 years old. They have a life expectancy of about 10 years. We've been waiting and waiting for the new model to come out, so we've been kind of limping ours along, and they literally came out last month. So that's why we came to you now. So that money, the $400,000, would pay for 6 cardiac monitors, which would provide 1 for all of our ambulances, 5 transporting ambulances, and our 1 advanced life support fire engine. So it would replace all of our machines. 2 of the current machines are LifePak 12 models, which are well older than 15 years. The Lucas device, that is a machine that we put on patients in cardiac arrest, and it does high-quality CPR instead of our paramedics and EMTs doing the CPR. Does it much more efficiently and much safer for our personnel. We currently have 4 of those on our ambulances, so this would purchase 2 additional so that we're not taking them off of other ambulances, and we would keep our ambulances fully stocked up.
Chief, are all the firefighters required to be paramedics or EMTs?
EMTs or paramedics. We do our best to hire only paramedics, but,
Okay.
yep.
So on the ambulance, do you team up a paramedic with an EMT?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes we try to run double paramedic trucks as much as we can, but occasionally we do have paramedic EMTs.
Thank you.
Yep. No other questions?
No.
Okay. Our next request is for $1.2 million to replace our engine 122. This engine is a 1994 engine, and NFPA recommends removing them from service at 25 years. We've had this on our plan to replace it for several years, and we have pushed this back numerous times because we were waiting to see if we were going to have a new station on the south side to put it in. When we first started looking at replacing this truck in '22, it was about $875,000. The price continues to jump. And if we were to buy this today, we would not see it for 3 years. So we decided we're at the point that we want to get this moving now so that we'd have it ready to go for the new station. And if for some reason that were to fall through, the design of this truck would allow us to put it in Monument Beach. So if for some reason we were stuck in Monument Beach in 3 years, it would still fit in our station. It's something that's long overdue. The build times are continuing to lengthen and the price continues to go up. So it made sense to try to go with this now.
And one thing I'd like to add about the engine is the fire department has currently submitted a grant application for just over $900,000. And the town, there's an option here, a decision point for the town to consider. One, we could purchase the engine and use the full amount of the grant, and then only the difference would come out of town funds. So the grant would write down the cost of the engine. The other option is keep the 1.27 million in the budget for the engine and get in line with a second engine with the grant amount. Because if you have the grant, we could potentially see 2 engines for about $1.4 million of local funds. So there's an incentive at the factory to purchase 2. And there's also, because they do take so much time in production, by the time those 3 years pass, the town would be looking to replace another engine at that point anyway. So we don't know yet about the grant. We hope to know that Friday or next week sometime. So we'll know before town meeting, and if the department is successful with the grant, we would come back to you and talk about, with real numbers, about what we would be looking at with real numbers if it was 2. And then we can go from there and decide, does it make sense to get in line at the factory for 2? Or do we want to, if we're successful with the grant, or do we want to write down the cost of 1? If we're not successful with the grant, we're going to move forward with this one.
Okay.
So I just want to put that out there, that depending on how things go, we may want to come back and talk to you about the engine.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next fire article with facilities I'll speak to. So as the committee knows, we've been searching for property to build a new fire station on the south side of the canal for quite a while. We sent out numerous RFPs for land. The last time we did it, we had some respondents with properties that were potentially favorable. We narrowed it down to 171 Clay Pond Road, which is the old Spencer's Garden property. And the select board authorized me to enter into negotiations with the seller. We have a draft PNS that is being exchanged for the sale. We have done an appraisal. The appraised value is $1.52 million, I think. So the cost is the appraised value. The property is not in the Water Resource Protection District. It's not in any other areas where we would not want to build a fire station. And it is in kind of right in the middle of the response time area that we're looking for to have both of the stations at Monument Beach and Pecasset be combined into one more central station. I'm happy to answer any questions. What I will say, sorry, one last thing. We have had the architect do a fit test of the property. The site is small, it's an acre, 40,000 square feet. And we have been able to fit the footprint and apron and parking areas roughly onto the site. So we're confident that we'll be able to build the station there without having to cut back on the size or the program of the station. It's a 4 double bay station. And we are moving forward with doing our perk tests tomorrow. So we're doing the due diligence before town meeting that we can. Are there any questions about that? Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Jump in if I miss anything. The next one is a new roof at Fire Station 3, which is Sagamore Beach. I think at the May town meeting in 2023, I came before you for an article to fund some roof investigations and design work for some buildings that have leaking roofs. Fire Station 3 is one of those. This is the original roof from the construction of the project. And the town has attempted to repair it a number of times, not always successfully. It is at the end of its life. It needs to be replaced. We conducted a leak study over the summer, kind of just to see what's going on there. The roof system needs to be replaced, and there are some masonry repairs around the parapet at the top of the roof where it meets the top of the wall that needs to be done. Water is getting in through the brickwork there. So this request will fund the masonry repairs and the new roof at the station.
So the 750 covers all of that?
Yes. Anything to add, Chief?
Nope.
Any questions on the roof at 3?
Thank you.
And Liz will talk to you about the fire alarms at this building.
Sure. So another thing that has expired for the life expectancy is the fire alarm system for this building, the community building. It is original to the building, which Wayne, from our last meeting at Capital Outlay, the building actually was built in 2003. So it is 21 years old. And so the $60,000 will cover replacement of all the hardware, all of the monitoring, the boards, the smoke detectors, heat detectors, the master control panels, and the pull stations for this building. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you. And that also includes the contingency of 10%. So.
Was this on our plan to be replaced?
I don't believe so, because this was found just recently.
It was a surprise.
Yeah, it was a surprise, and we can't have a building that is open to the general public that does
Oh, no, I
not
agree
have
with doing it.
active.
I was just curious if it
Yes.
was on the plan.
Unfortunately, this was a surprise.
It was discovered when we kept having to call the fire department for alarms.
Thank you. Any more questions on facilities? Now, item C, ice swim operating budget adjustments.
Sorry, we still have some more capital. Next capital is, there's two ice swim projects and a school department project.
Good evening, folks. My name is Dan Barrett. I'm the General Manager of the Integrated Solid Waste Management Facility. Thank you for entertaining our requests for capital at this special town meeting. The first piece that we're looking for is replacement of a fire suppression system header line, which feeds all of the spray nozzles for fire suppression at the C&D transfer station. We discovered early this summer that we were starting to see some pinholes, which lets air out, which the compressor couldn't keep up with, so it was beginning to give us alarms that we could fix while we were there. And then we had our fire alarm engineer, who actually maintains the system for us and installed it at the beginning, took a look at it, and he said he's seen it before. It's a galvanized pipe and it's rotting. So he said, you know, it's like 15, 16 years old, so he said it needs to be replaced. Unfortunately, you know, this transfer station has a limited life as we continue to expand, but this isn't something we can let go. So we'd like to try to get that done as quickly as possible. Any questions on that? The second one.
Questions? Go ahead, Dan.
The second one is the larger of the two. It's final development of the 12-acre parcel. We're about to acquire the remaining piece of that, and once we do acquire it, we need to get there and get working on it. It requires clearing. It's going to require installation of turtle fencing. It's a turtle habitat area. We're acquiring the appropriate mitigation land. It will require installation of about 2,600 feet of temporary silt fence, more or less, and then right behind it will come the permanent fence. Once we get that, the silt fence installed, we then can go in and do the turtle assessment. Then the naturalist group that we have, Horsley and Winton, will come in and actually do an inventory, move the ones out of there that are in there, we'll complete the fence. Then we can go in and start clearing, which is essential. We'd like to have this done, if all goes well and we get approved on this, we'd like to have this done by the middle of the winter, because this is clutch to us continuing to develop this piece of land, which will allow us to move our buildings, which is coming up a little later on at this meeting, that discussion, and we will be able to optimize the full 12-acre parcel and the full landfill capabilities of the facility.
Sorry, what does the 220 cover exactly?
It covers,
Fence?
covers turtle fencing, land clearing, stump removal, soil removal, and some of that work we'll be able to do ourselves, but we're pretty tied up right now doing other stuff, so we want to make sure we get it all covered in there, so we can make sure it gets done. Let's see. We have about 1,200 in temporary fence material, 9,400 in permanent fence material, and then installation and labor, 30,000 for the temp and permanent fences together. Land clearings, 32,000, 8,900 for stump removal, 72,000 we put in for soil removal, but we're working to reduce that number. We can do a lot of that internally, and we're also working on some exchanges with some materials up there that we can move. Subtotal's about 154. I did put a heavy contingency in there, 25%, comes out to be 194,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
No, school department. And then back to you, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. Jordan Geis, Bourne Public Schools, Director of Business Services. Dr. Joe, Superintendent of Schools. The request before you is for $280,000 to remove and replace the 120-ton chiller at Bourne Middle School. This chiller failed last spring. The chiller feeds the front office, the administrative offices, the media center, and a large classroom, as well as the tech storage office room. You were provided with a quote for $255,000, which covers the design, removal of the old unit, and the installation. The request is for $280,000. It's a 10% contingency built in.
There have really been no
Thank you.
significant changes since we reviewed this previously, correct? Yep, thank you. I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think, I think, Jim, you're ready to go to C now, the ISWIM operating budget adjustments.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a problem with that table on my printout. I apologize. Yes, so ISWIM operating budget adjustments.
And if you are following along in the draft warrant, that is now Article 3.
Good evening again. Dan Barrett from ISWIM. We did make some substantial adjustments, or proposing or asking to make some substantial adjustments to our operating budget. Been an interesting year at ISWIM with land purchases, development, so on and so forth, but running in the background is our pilot project with the barge moving leachate down to Passaic Valley, New Jersey. I'm sure you've all heard the stories. It's been difficult for us to find a home for this material. We found one. The best way, most environmentally friendly, logistically friendly, was to move it over ocean via a barge. It is, however, a little bit more expensive. The fact that we can take as much down there as we want to is very beneficial to us. It's allowed us to really work at getting our facility back to where it needs to be from a wastewater treatment perspective. Really what we saw there was a jump in the leachate volume. We saw an increase year to year of $1 million. We saw 2 million, actually, or a little bit more than that, but 2 million an increase in volume. What we were able to do is go out and clean the lines out. You probably saw our sewer truck up there if you were working. Thanks to Matt for loaning us his truck. We went up and scoured the lines out after 20 years. The system's working very well. We acid treated the sumps, which also made it very effective to get more water out of there. So that's why we saw such a large increase. We anticipate, just to kind of put that in perspective, we moved well over 16 million, almost 17 million gallons of leachate this year. We average about 12 to 13 million. So we were able to move out quite a bit more, which is a good thing. It's expensive, but it's good. The cost to move it down to Passaic is 29 cents a gallon. When we hit 6 million gallons with that contract, it drops down to about 24 cents. Our land routes, which we continue to maintain, are about 15 cents, which is quite a bit cheaper. We do utilize those. Doing the takeoff for this, I had a massive spreadsheet that went in 12 different directions, which I was pretty sure nobody wanted to see. But the bottom line is we do have choices. the folks that are running the barge are doing a fantastic job. Passaic Valley's happy. But we're going to try to run the land routes as hard as we can. We're doing a better job of, or not better, but we have opportunities to shed more water. We've been working really hard on a plan to keep the intermediate cover in place so that we can shed wastewater, not wastewater, but prevent the production of wastewater and run clean water down the side of the landfill. You know, all the tools that ASA has at his disposal, he's really come up with a fantastic, you know, I'm an old landfill guy, but he's come up with a fantastic plan to keep that place running. We do, however, have to be aware of the fact that when you do a vertical expansion, there are cost savings. I explain that to you guys in capital, but you have to be aware that if you do your job right, you're packing the landfill, the water's not going to infiltrate as quickly. We're taking advantage of existing liners, saving quite a bit of money, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that if we get some heavy rains over an extended period of time, we could see some water trapped on top. DEP's aware of that. I've done these at 2 or 3 other places that I've worked, and it's fairly manageable. You just go up there with the trucks and pump it directly off the top. But you have to be ready with some money in reserve to make sure that you can keep that going. So that's why, you know, $2.25 million, and Marlene's smiling at me, but $2.25 million increase in that line item. We jacked it up year to year. This year we put about $700,000 in there. We took it up to $4,900, but we're going to be well over about $6.2 million. I don't anticipate we'll spend that much, but it's better to have it, and we can and will put it back. So that's the reason for that ask. We're looking at increasing the host community budget line, or our budget line in host community. We were over $1 million for the first time last year that we were able to contribute back to the town. Very happy about that. But we also predict, I went back and looked at the BCPI, and I think the anomalous number was 2 years ago. I think it was 8.1% that BCPI increased. For years and years, it was right around 2.54% over like 10 to 15 years. If you look at the last 5 years, including that 8% increase, the average 5 years is 3.3%. Right now, we're paying the town $4.36 for the first half of FY25. The second half, if you go at 3.3%, will be $4.50. So that'll put us again a little over $1 million, about $1,015,000. Erica has proposed putting $1,030,000 in, just to make sure that we don't exceed that. We got a little comfort zone there. That was our next request. Any questions on that one? Oh.
Looks like none.
Very good. Well, thank you for hearing our request. And if you have any questions come up, let me know and we'll answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next article is the I-SWIM mitigation land transfer, and that is Article 20 in your warrant, and I believe ASA's going to talk to that one, right?
He's going to talk to the OPM.
Oh,
I can talk to this one if you'd like.
oh, OPM's at the select board tomorrow.
If you haven't seen enough of it yet. Yeah, the land transfer is pretty simple. There will be town meeting action required for the internal transfer. Very quickly, we own a piece of land that was initially specifically cited as landfill operational land. In other words, it could have been used as a landfill. As we dice the facility up and try to optimize using all of the space that we can, which we will do, this will actually put us over. It sounds like not much, but it's 1.07 acres, 3 separate little parcels on the very east side of the landfill, right up against the base. We really couldn't do anything with it. We wouldn't want to. So we've proposed to transfer that internally from the town, being ISWIM in this case, to the Conservation Commission for their care, custody, and control in perpetuity as mitigation land. So it brings us right to the edge. We needed a little over 18 acres to fully mitigate the 12. We're now at 18, I think it's 0.57. So we're just a little bit over, which is a good thing. Doesn't sound like much, but it's important for us, and we hope you guys will give that some consideration as we move through this and get it done. People have asked me, I shouldn't even bring it up because it'll just confuse you, but they said, why don't you have to transfer the 11 acres you're about to buy? That part of that transaction will be conducted. It doesn't require town meeting approval. And part of that will be covered as we move through the acquisition. It'll be automatically turned over to Concom. Any questions on that one? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
The next article is for funding the OPEB account, and that is Article 4 in the draft warrant. Erica, do you want to talk about the OPEB funds?
Sure, I can do that. Good evening. So Article number 4 is a contribution to the OPEB trust fund. The total amount proposed is $1,004,000. That's $714,000 from free cash for general fund liability, $260,000 from ISWIM retained earnings for ISWIM liability, and $30,000 for the sewer enterprise fund. I will note that this is based on the existing financial policies. The new policies will not go into effect until fiscal 26. So the $714,000 is 10% of the excess free cash over the general fund operating budget.
So how many years do you think that it's going to take before we actually pay off where we should be? I mean, is that are we talking like 20 or 30 years?
Slowly, we're approximately 15, we're not quite 20% funded. We have made some significant improvements to this. It's anticipated that when we pay off our pension liability, we can start redirecting those monies into the OPEB liability. And I believe the current funding on that one is just around 2030 with Barnstable County.
So how much have we paid off on the pension fund?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I am happy to provide them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested just to know where we are relative to what percentage we've paid into.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more on OPEB?
No.
All right, thank you, Erica.
Sorry, just before we move on, do we still need fire and DPW?
We don't. Everybody is free to go home.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda.
You're welcome.
The next article is Capital Stabilization Fund, and this is Article 5. And the same disclaimer applies here that Erica mentioned for OPEB. The new financial policies have been voted with the understanding that we'd be building FY26 based on the new financial policies. Since these OPEB and capital stabilization funds are still FY25, rather than switching mid-year, we're keeping these under the previous set of policies. But we're in full compliance. Erica, can you, I don't have the number in front of me. Can you tell us what the number is for the Capital Stabilization Fund contribution?
Sure. This is based on our past practice of transferring the excess post community fee from the ISWIM into the capital stabilization fund. So last year, the host community fee collected was $1,018,617. We budgeted $600,000 of that in our estimated local receipts in the general fund operating budget. So the excess to be transferred, we're gonna round to $419,000. So that's from free cash to the capital stabilization, but that is the practice and the source.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And then the last article is Article 1 in your draft warrant. It's the standing article for committee reports. It may be the case that the select board is going to give a brief report on the CWMP, the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan process. I haven't heard of any other groups that are going to do reports. Southside Fire Station will be able to give an explanation as part of their land article, and ISWIM Building Committee will be able to give a report as part of their article as well.
Thank you. All right, next, request from the school superintendent for a member to serve on an ad hoc capital plan committee.
Are they meeting mainly during the day? I think they had a meeting, was it last week?
There was a meeting last Friday at 1 o'clock,
Mhm.
and there's a meeting this Friday at 1 o'clock. I don't have knowledge of any other dates on the calendar for that group.
Okay. So it sounds like it's maybe a 1 o'clock timeframe.
Jim, could I speak on this, please?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, Jim, and I brought this up just, at the Capitol meeting also. I have a little bit of a concern just about the potential for an appearance of conflict if we as a board member serve, especially as an ad hoc member to some committee. I'm concerned that the guidelines specify that we should only serve on, the Finance Committee and nothing else at all. But I understand that the history of Bourne is to occasionally, when especially the Board of Selectmen might form an actual committee, they may specify certain members and that we serve on those committees. At least in that circumstance, some other town body above us or equal to us or whatever has recommended that we serve on those committees. But if it's not a committee that has been recommended that we serve on by other town officials, the potential for us to be serving just as an advisory member on some type of a committee, I just think that our role is supposed to be a very independent review as a committee afterwards, and I'm very comfortable doing that. I'm uncomfortable going and participating in helping develop some budget and then bringing that forward in voting on it. So, and I'm not sure, this is the second time in the last couple of weeks that we've had a request for one of us to go join their committee and discuss budgets and in future programs. So I'm just throwing it out as something that we should at least talk about as a committee and think about it.
So I think they are asking for one representative, not necessarily looking for whomever's available at that moment to participate. I think they're looking for a consistent member. However, I understand your point about you're looking for a formal committee to be formed. Is this an advisory committee to you?
It is not. This is a request from the school superintendent.
See, I think that's beyond what we normally do.
Normally, it is a formal committee that's set up, typically by the select board, and they
Yeah.
say appoint one member from the finance committee,
Right,
one member from the
exactly.
select board, et cetera.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to put it out there that it's a concern that I have, you know.
So I'm not sure about the rules on that, since it's coming from the school superintendent.
It's voluntary, so it's certainly not required that you send anyone.
Okay.
MJ?
Thank you. So under the open meeting law, town administrators or superintendents can create an ad hoc committee by invitation to advise them on the recommendation that they're gonna make. That's what this committee is. It's outside the open meeting law. It is to advise the superintendent. I think that I understand the issue raised about conflict where you're advising on something that may come back to the committee. I understand that. I think that's a good point, Wayne, that you raised. It is a mechanism allowed under the open meeting law. I don't know if it would be I can't comment on violation of the charter. We have in the past had town administrators who did this kind of advisory committee where they had a member of the FinCom, a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the superintendent of schools, a member of the school committee, and they sat down and they said, how are we gonna deal with the situation? And there was conversation, and it was, no decisions are made. It's just advisory to the superintendent or the town administrator. And then that person goes and makes their recommendation. And then the recommendation that is made is reviewed by the full committee. So whether or not the finance committee wants to participate in helping to advise is the decision of the finance committee. But that's what it is. It's totally to advise to help the superintendent understand the finance committee position so she can make a recommendation to the school committee and the finance committee and the select board and the town meeting. So that's what this is. It's not, the committee itself makes no decisions. It is only to advise the superintendent so the superintendent can make recommendations.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I still think that remains the question of whether that's a charter violation.
I mean, I would have to do a little bit of exploration on it, but I mean, my understanding was that we were not supposed to serve on any other committee.
It was only as a representative of the finance committee, but I'm not sure in terms of setting up formal committees or not. I don't have the answer on that one.
Right. Yeah.
So I think so I wouldn't be comfortable personally volunteering or voting someone until we had that answered. I certainly don't want to set us up for a charter violation. I don't know how others feel, but.
Yep. I just raised it so that we at least discuss it and
It's a valid point.
we take a look at it.
So, do individuals want to look at the charter, come up with their own interpretation, discuss it at the next meeting? Or seek opinion from the town council? Any idea how you want to proceed?
May I make a recommendation?
Sure.
So, as far as I know, as far as I know, there were 2 dates set, last Friday and this Friday. So if this is something that is going to be kind of if this is something that's going to be ongoing, I wouldn't mind, requesting an opinion from town council for you. If this is something that there were 2 meetings and it's going to be done, I'm not necessarily going to pursue getting a legal opinion if it's not going to be if it's not going to be ongoing. Is that all right?
I agree with that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine
Yes.
with that. So for me, the same thing would apply for this library thing. That's similar, that I'd be careful on that one.
So Wayne is referring to the Library Feasibility Study Committee that we've received an invitation.
Well,
to-
I think that was just an invitation to attend it. We're not sitting
But
on it.
was that as members of the public, or was that specifically soliciting a finance committee member?
So the trustees of the library will be appointing a study committee. So the trustees have the care, custody, and control of the library. They're elected by the general public to serve in their role. They will be establishing a study committee for their feasibility project. So that will be appointed. If the finance committee wants to participate in that as a representative of the finance committee, you will be appointed by the library trustees to serve on that group.
Okay.
That one is not ad hoc. And it's not advisory to a staff person. That's a study committee that the trustees are going to
That would
run.
become a formal committee that they'd be looking for. a
See,
president.
I would have trouble with committees around town saying, oh, we're gonna have a member of the finance committee on there. I mean, the Board of Selectmen, I can understand. They're responsible for running the town,
So I think I think it's no different than capital outlay, but we have representatives to advise and sort of report back. That's why we typically have, finance committee, we typically have reporting back on committees, so you could come
Right.
back to us and keep us informed. We can't all necessarily
Right.
attend
Yep.
every meeting and participate in every meeting, so I believe that was the intended purpose behind having a representative. So I certainly understand the purpose of it and agree
Right.
with having
Yep.
somebody in that capacity. But I certainly understand your concern in terms
Yeah.
of the proper protocols.
That's all.
All right, thank you. So, all right, so we note this request. There's only 1 meeting left apparently, which is Friday. Is there anyone present who wants to attend that as representative of the Finance Committee? So it looks like none, so it may be a moot point about this particular invitation. So any further discussion on item 4?
Nope.
All right, thank you. So item 5, reorganization of officers. There are some members who are not present tonight. We don't want to deprive them of the vote or opportunity to volunteer to serve. Would anyone be interested in making a motion to reschedule this agenda item to the next meeting on September 30th?
I don't think we have to make a motion. I think we can just,
Just do it?
yep.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that will be next week. Now, somewhat related is to vote our own finance committee appointments as representatives to other committees. These are other established committees where we're duly appointed, and there may be some vacancies due to change over in our membership. So Kathleen was nice enough to send me a list, which I think I shared with you. Trying to find here right now. Got it. So this list Kathleen sent me has a bylaw committee with a member of Kathleen Legacy, who left this committee on June 30th. So that's a vacancy. That's a 3-year term that expires June 2025. Then there's a second 3-year term that expires at the same time for that same committee that's already vacant. So that's 2 vacancies there, assuming this information is current. We have Capital Outlay Committee, a term with like 10 months to go, and Tom's on that. And Wayne's on that with a term that expires June 2027. Community Engagement Committee, Amanda's on that, a term that expires June 27th. Ice Room Office Building, Tom's serving. And Wayne is on the long-lived South Side Fire Station Committee. So it looks like there are 2 vacancies now for the bylaw committee. Would anyone be interested in being appointed to be the Finance Committee's member on the bylaw committee? Okay, it looks like no. So think about that. It's not too late to, at any later time, since we have 2 vacancies. I would volunteer to serve, I guess, take over Kathy's position on the bylaw committee that expires next June. And I think we have to vote that, right? Right, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion or nominations or volunteering for this bylaw committee?
When do they meet?
So the bylaw committee meets generally once before town meeting, each town meeting, to review any general bylaw change, any general bylaw warrant articles. They typically meet on a Wednesday. They typically meet on a Wednesday, like at 4 o'clock or so. And
Would that be in person or via Zoom?
they have both.
Okay.
So they're set up as hybrid meetings, so there's, you can attend virtually or in person.
Okay, I would volunteer for position,
Oh, thank you, Dan.
no problem.
I thought we only had one person on that. I didn't think it was 2 from the finance committee. Did that change?
I don't know. I've never seen 2 finance committee members on the bylaw committee, but they tend to also operate with a number of vacancies.
So it's possible this sheet had Kathy's position listed twice, because it has the same term, one being her and one being the correct one of being vacant. Well, should we appoint one person now, Dan, and try to seek clarification on this later?
I would agree with that. I would make a motion to appoint Dan to the bylaw committee for a 3-year term.
Second.
Thank you. Is that Wayne second?
Yeah, let's talk.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Okay. Remote meeting, roll call vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Dan,
Do you have to ask me?
Yes, he does.
Yes,
thanks, and I'll vote yes. Thank you.
no problem.
I will say that the bylaw committee is meeting on Wednesday.
This Wednesday,
Yes.
awesome.
I think it's at 4:45 at the police station and with a Zoom link. So,
Okay,
We'll-
Zoom is important because I'll be in Boston.
yep. David Gay is the chair, so we'll reach out to David and let him know that you are the FinCom member.
Okay,
And we'll make sure that you get the Zoom link.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is town meeting schedule. The town administrator sent us the fall special town meeting and schedule for FY capital and operating budget May 5th, town meeting schedule. Marlene, do you have anything to add to that, or does anyone have any questions about the schedule?
I don't have anything to add. I just want to make sure you have it. And this is what we are going to kind of try to keep us on track. So you can follow along and see what's coming up.
Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, and minutes, I apologize, I don't have the minutes for us. They would be the minutes of June 24th. I'll make sure we have them by Monday. Future agenda items related to correspondence and other items for future discussion. Is there any discussion on that?
Maybe we could just add an agenda for updates from committee representatives.
Oh, good idea. Thank you. Any other suggestions for future agenda items? Okay, our next meeting will be a week from today, September 30th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Amanda, second by, was that Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dan.
Take care.